Hello, my name's Lauren and I am sharing my personal home buying journey. So I'm currently in the process of buying a property and I work for online personal finance website Money to the Masses, and I have previously shared about how I've saved my money and how I've been saving for a deposit. So I thought it would be really interesting for you to join me on my house buying journey so you can find out the highs and lows of buying a house, and particularly the highs and lows of buying a house in a pandemic. So I'm going to be sharing each step of the house buying journey, and if you have any questions about the house buying journey and the house buying process, then email me lauren@moneytothemasses.com. So in the first video I shared about the first steps that we did in the first stage of our house buying journey. Now this was before we even started looking for a property. This was the complete beginning, how we decided we was going to save for a deposit, how we knew how much we was going to save for a deposit, and then who we spoke to, so a mortgage advisor. Now in this video I'm going to be sharing the steps that we took to save for a deposit, what the next stages are that you want to do when you're ready to start looking for a property, and then the things you need to have in place when you want to start looking at a property. So the first thing we did, I shared in the previous video, we decided to clear our debt. We spoke to the mortgage advisor to find out how much we could borrow. The next stage was saving for a deposit. I previously touched on the fact that we opened a lifetime ISA. We had one each because each partner can have a lifetime ISA when it comes to purchasing a property, and we use this as the main place to save our deposit. Now there is a limit on how much you can put into a lifetime ISA in each tax year, so we have also put the rest of our savings in the savings account in my main bank account. So once we'd done this and we'd saved up the most of our deposit, we were then in the position to be able to look at houses. Now throughout this whole process we've been constantly looking on Rightmove. It got to a point where we actually had to stop looking because you would find houses that you actually liked and wanted to go to look at, but we weren't in a position to buy. So I don't recommend looking before you are in a position to buy, because it's just disheartening when you see things that you like but you aren't in a position to yet buy or you can't afford. In our position, because we have been looking to purchase a property during a global pandemic, there is a lot stricter criteria when it comes to looking at property. So before we were able to look at a property, we had to have an agreement in principle, also known as a decision in principle or a mortgage in principle, in place before we could view some of the houses. Now not all of the estate agents asked for this, but some of them did because they wanted serious home buyers only. It's also great to have an agreement in principle in place when looking at a property outside of a pandemic. This is obviously a rare situation, but it makes you a more attractive buyer because you are there ready to go. You've already had a bank say that they are potentially, subject to credit checks, willing to lend you the money should you like the property and should you make an offer. So we contacted our mortgage advisor. We had them do us an agreement in principle so that when we looked at the properties, we were in a position to be able to buy should we like them. So we, like I said previously, we were constantly looking on Rightmove and all of the different property portals like On the Market, Purple Bricks, all of these places to try and find a property that we liked. We had a scale of properties that we could afford. We preferred to actually stay down the lower end of our property, of properties that we could afford. And this is because I'm a bit of a stickler about money. As you can see from my Millennial Money YouTube channel, I like to know that we are financially comfortable. So if we could try and find as much as we could in a property down the lower end of our budget, it would mean that we are more financially comfortable rather than trying to max ourselves out at the top end of our budget. So when I was looking at what we could potentially afford, I worked out the bills and a potential mortgage amount based on all of our basic salary. So this was my partner's basic salary with no overtime and with no bonuses, and it was the same for me, so that we could potentially afford something at the lower end of our budget. Now, some may say this is quite early for me to be able to do this, but I thought it was quite important to be able to stick down the lower end of our budget and not set our expectations too high, because then that goes towards the top end of our budget and beyond. And once we opened our mind up to this, we began to notice properties that actually were more suitable in our budget, but particularly so maybe just by moving out further in an area that we wanted to live in. So once you've found a few houses that you want to look at, what we did is we drove past them. We got really excited. We wanted to book viewings. But before we did that, we actually narrowed them down. So I would save a lot of the properties in the saved properties section in like Rightmove, for example. And then we would drive around the properties to actually see what they were like. And this is really interesting because there are a lot of properties that you think that you will like until you drive past them. Now, we had quite a few properties that thought they would be totally suitable for us, but when we actually drove down the roads where they were, we found that they wouldn't quite work out. For example, for parking reasons, or maybe they seemed smaller than what they were in the picture. We didn't like what they were nearby. We didn't like potentially what the neighbours had next door, if they had something on their driveway that we didn't quite like. And also it gives you a great perspective of what the property is like at different times of the day. So it's quite important to also drive past the properties maybe potentially in rush hour. In the school run, is your road going to be used for somewhere where all the parents park every morning to drop off their children? And also particularly on a weekend day when everyone's home, what is the parking situation like? Is this something that you can deal with, and can you fit in living there? So this was really interesting because this helped us to narrow down to properties that we genuinely liked even after driving past, rather than wasting time viewing properties that we knew that we wouldn't like because of the area or the road that they were in. So once you decide that you want to look at a property, you need to contact the estate agent. So in apps such as Rightmove, if you decide you want to book a viewing for a property, you can just call within the app. That directs you to the estate agent, and then you just tell them the time that you would like to book. I really liked booking with Purple Bricks because everything was online, so it was quite easy. You didn't have to sit and ring and try and get hold of someone to be able to book. That was all online, so that was quite handy. And you could also change and rebook online as well, which was I really quite liked that. So when you decide that you want to look at the houses, that's when you book a viewing. We had a few viewings booked in on similar days, and that is because we wanted to see houses at the same time, because then it was easier to compare them. But sometimes don't book too many in as well, because it can become quite overwhelming and you forget which property had what about it. So it's quite good to maybe write down things that you liked about a property when you leave the viewing, just so that you can remember and refer back to each one. So then we looked at, I think it was about 6 properties in total. We looked at some before Christmas, and then we looked at 3 after Christmas, and we booked some viewings on a Saturday, and then we booked some viewings on a Wednesday, so we saw them at different times of the day. So we contacted the estate agents, made the viewings, and then properties that we liked, we asked to view them again. When you go and book a viewing into a property, it's important to do your research, and people have always said this to me: make sure that you do research before you look at a property. But I didn't realise how important it was till I actually was in the position to be able to look, and it worked in my favour quite a lot of the time. There was a particular property that we liked, and it had been on the market previously with another estate agent, and I had noticed this property before Christmas, and it was on the market from September. And then just after Christmas, it came off the market. And I was like, we were quite disappointed because at the time we didn't have enough money to go and look at it. And then just after Christmas, it came back on the market, but this time it was being rented out with the same estate agents. And then it got I saw that it got put back on the market again, but with a completely different estate agent. So we booked a viewing to see this property, and then when we booked a viewing to see the property, I was talking to the estate agent and asking them how many viewings it had, how long it had been on the market, and they obviously did not disclose that the property had previously been on the market with another estate agent. Which was interesting because I then told them that I knew it had been on the market previously, and I knew also how much it had been up for and how much it had been reduced to. So I had a bit of an extra insight into the property, so I kind of had the upper hand about this property, particularly when it comes to liking the property and potentially making an offer. So make sure you definitely do the research, and if there's properties that you like, save them and keep going back and notice any changes that happen with the property. So that was the second stage. That's what we did. We did all of those things to build up to be able to then go and look at the property. In the next video, I will share with you the next stages of when we looked at properties and what we liked and disliked about the properties, and then about our first offer that we made on the property and how it went wrong. So if you have any questions, email me, Lauren@moneytothemasses.com, but stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for watching.